Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you this afternoon. My name is Lawrence Pantin, and I'm Justice Transparency Coordinator at Mexico Evalúa. And we're going to talk today about sports. Yesterday, during the forum's inauguration, Elsie Milan, a PhD candidate from Lebanon and an activist involved in climate action and the energy transition, mentioned that Paris is usually considered the capital of love and resistance. But it should also become the capital of peace for people and the planet. And next year, it will definitely be the capital of sports with the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Sports is a way to compete without conquering. And as Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, said last night, sports events are a gathering where we come not seeing our differences, but trying to overcome ourselves. And indeed, sports is a place where our birthplace, the amount of money we have in our pockets, or the color of our skin is irrelevant. This is why sports can be a powerful tool towards more inclusive and sustainable societies. Sports can help people experiencing disabilities, illnesses, poverty, discrimination, violence, incarceration, and displacement find a renewed confidence in themselves, learn basic life skills such as discipline, listening to others, following the rules, or being part of a team, but also socialize and have fun. And I hope we're going to have fun today. This is also why the Paris Peace Forum selected various projects from all over the globe that use sports to achieve a greater goal of building more inclusive and sustainable societies. And we're here this afternoon to learn from these projects, which I shall present in a moment. But to begin with, we are really honored to have with us Alexandre Dugaro, member of the Executive Committee and spokesperson for sports at Alliance France, who is going to tell us how the company has developed programs to foster social inclusion and professional integration through sports. Mr. Dugaro, we're delighted to hear from your experience for 10 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup. Ravi d'être avec vous pour
Thank you very much. Delighted to be with you to take part in this round table. Now, you might be asking yourselves why an insurer, someone from an insurer is here to talk about sports and inclusion, inclusivity. But rather than give you a long speech, I'm going to present three portraits to you. Tiffaine Solvay, who is a Paralympic athlete of the Alliance team, Team Alliance, at the age 11, she had cancer on her right leg, and so she had her right leg amputated. It was difficult to find motivation for life in her role, and via sport, via high-level sport, she is a vice champion in France for the long jump in 2020, as one of the candidates for the Paralympics next year in Paris. And she told me two things when I met here just 2 weeks ago in the Place Republic Square. First of all, she said sport is, first of all, mental strength, and secondly, sport, even if I'm in individual sport, enables us to be together within Team Alliance, but also being part of the group of athletes with whom I train, and to overcome failure. Hundreds of injuries, this mental strength enables us to overcome failure. A second portrait I'd like to present to you today is Remy McIntyre. I met him 5 years ago, and he arrived at Alliance. He'd been in Brussels, and he came up via a program of career athletes. We take former high-level athletes. He's a very good basketball player, and we give them an opportunity to find a job. And so little by little, he saw a few jobs in the field, inspectors or risk assessors, ensuring that everything's compliant, electricity and so on. So he got himself trained up, and now he's an in-field inspector. And when I asked Remy, what is sport for you? He said sport is the school of life, or the university of life, if you like. It allows the professionals to move forward. And the third portrait I'd like to present to you is Jamal Amaj. Amaj, he's in a wheelchair, he's disabled. He does wheelchair basketball. He's selected for the France wheelchair basketball team in 2016. For more than 10 years, he's been part of the Team Alliance. He develops our life insurance and our savings products. And Jamal is somebody who's passionate about what he does. And for me, sport is, first of all, is my health, because if I don't do sport, I feel less good. But also, it is my safety valve, if you like. It's a doorway to personal fulfillment. Now, for sport, but in Alliance, but for many other companies as well, is incorporated, is woven into the daily lives. But I'd like to stand back, if I may, to see the woods from the trees. I'm convinced, personally convinced, that sport enables one to create society. Now, it gives us the fabric with which to create society. That means several things. First of all, connections. Secondly, values. And thirdly, objectives. Now, I'd like to be a bit more specific, if I may. Sport enables one to create connections between people who were alone beforehand. We were talking about this via boxing. When you're boxing, well, you have to be two to box, don't you? So it creates a form of connection. It isn't. If you don't have the connections, you don't have society. Now, as a first step. The second step, sport enables us to share values. Now, that's extremely important, because everyone's in their bubble, and we don't share a great deal. I've got a little quiz question for you. Do you know the 3 values of the Olympics? Yes? Tell me what they are, then. Go ahead. I've done my homework. Over to you. Friendship, respect, and excellence. Fantastic. And so let's move up a level. Do you know the 4 values of the Paralympic Games? I like those even more, and despite that, they're slightly less well known. First of all, courage, determination, equality, and inspiration. Now, when you share values on top of connections, you can move up to third stage, cooperate to attain objectives, and that's true for society, that's true for a private company like Alliance. Now, tangibly speaking, how do we commit ourselves? How does Alliance commit itself? We do many different things. I'll just give you a few examples, if I may. First of all, we commit to the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and we're going to offer many different places to our clients, our prospects, our partners. And, okay, it's a mercantilistic event. People say, well, I speak to Clarisse Yvenou, who is a high-level judo sportsman. What is sport for you? Sport is a moment for sharing. So we're going to take part in this sharing process. Now, an important point for Alliance, we're a partner at the Paralympic Games in 2016, and we'll be partners for the Paralympics and Olympics through to 2028. But even beyond 2028, we will remain partners at the Olympic Paralympic Games. We deal with those things on an equal footing. Now, we live and breathe the Olympic Games with our 10,000 employees. The second point for Alliance is health, is managing your health properly in an anticipatory manner, rather reactive manner. We engage, we do quick walking. Quick walking is essential for long-term health. We invest in health problem prevention. Third point is social inclusion. Social inclusion, work a great deal with sports in the cities. Social inclusion is, for instance, the 21st of July last in the Alliance Stadium in Nice, the town of Nice. We saw all the children from the districts in Nice for professionals and with football coaches who got them to do exercises, who got them to take part in a mini tournament, and we had a food sports nutritionist. The importance of visible and invisible training. We call this is known as Move Camp now. And we want to get tens of thousands of children to take part in these workshops. And lastly, sport it's a local initiative. We're supporting many different associations, about 30 federations. And now I'd like to wrap up by saying that I say this on a personal basis. I've been working with it for Allianz 26 years now, and I would remain so long with this company if the DNA of the company had not had sport inclusion and commitment as part of its DNA. And all these are pivotal values, and we're of course delighted to share your experiences and share with you in your experiences very much as close to the field as possible.
And it's really, good to hear that companies like Allianz are accompanying projects that, try to make things better through sports. I now would like to introduce the rest of our speakers. First of all, Charlotte Green, I'm sorry about the pronunciation, Executive Director of Circus Zambia from Zambia. Natalia Espitia, Founder and General Director of Fundación Niñas Sin Miedo from Colombia. Germán Laborda, President of Fundación Empate that has a project in Argentina and Peru. Aram Gay, Ambassador for the Association pour le Sourire d'un Enfant that works in Senegal and France. Eunice Rendon, General Coordinator at Red Viral from Mexico. Nina Daboussi, Program Coordinator at Terrain d'Avenir in France. And Ludovic Dou, Head of Programs at Peace and Sports from Monaco, but that works in and is deployed internationally. The format for this session will be the following. First, we'll have 2 rounds of questions, and then we'll open the floor for questions and comments from the audience. So first of all, Charlotte, let me start with you if you agree with that. Could you provide us examples of how Circus Zambia has harnessed the transformative power of circus sports to empower marginalized youth and the strategies you've employed to instill knowledge and shift behaviors among the over 10,000 young people who have been impacted by your project, please?
Sure, thank you for that lengthy question. So yeah, to start with what you first asked, how we've affected the lives of the young people. I think there's different ways that we've done that. As Circus Zambia, there's those, I'm going to give you just some stories because I think those are the most interesting to hear. So there's those people that have really been impacted through the circus in the sense that they have become professional circus athletes, performers, artists. So there's, for example, Patrick, who's been in our program for the last 7 years and who's gone on to become an international circus performer who works and lives in the US now and works with different circuses. There's also Belinda, who is a young woman that was the first woman to travel with us as a circus performer, and through the years that she's trained circus at Circus Zambia, we provide free circus training. She has been able to become a circus performer. She's traveled in different countries, and she's also a role model for the young women in Circus Zambia. But our work as a social circus does not just stop at doing circus, but it's about also the social impact. So a major impact is along the lines of where young people can become change makers through the work that they do in Circus Zambia. So just to give some examples of how that has worked, we have an extensive program which is called, we call it Body, Mind and Soul. So the idea is that we provide holistic support for young people by focusing on circus sports, as well as education, and in the soul we do life skills. And some of the examples of how that has affected young people from marginalized communities is, for example, a woman, that has been with Circus Zambia for many years and how now has become a leader in her community. She works with young girls in her community. She's come to this leadership work through performing with Circus Zambia in her community, through bringing young girls from her community to come into the circus where they have been taught things about gender equality, about sexual reproductive health rights. And now she is a leader in her community where young women come to her with issues that they experience in their personal lives. And she then directs them to Circus Zambia or other pathways, partners that we work with. So like that, she plays this role in her community. There is, for example, also Arthur, who started, when we started, he was working, selling bread on the street. Now he is in his community, he says, I'm a bit of a feminist, is how he calls himself, and he fights for these gender equality. So there's different ways of, that we affect the lives of young people. The strategies of the 10,000, so there's this work that we do directly with all these young people that I mentioned, which is about 120 young people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. Then we also have a lot of outreach activities, because one of the beauties of circus is that it's at the intersection of sports and arts. So it allows us to work with these young people directly to sports, but also have a big outreach component through kind of the arts form of circus, where we now use circus show elements to communicate messages to people in the community. So for example, we create circus shows and circus workshops where we teach people about how to wash your hands, about how to use condoms, for example. And we can do that through clowning, through circus, through sports. So that is a kind of unique way that circus can be used as a way to create behavioral change and knowledge amongst people.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Very interesting and inspiring. Now, turning to Natalia. Natalia, in what ways does your program empower girls to challenge gender stereotypes through soccer and cycling? And how does this contribute to breaking social norms? Could you share with us any success stories of girls who have actually been benefited from the program, please? ¿Tienes que prenderlo?
Pues la Fundación Niñas Sin Miedo es una fundación.
The foundation, the founded Little Girls Without Fear Foundation, is an NGO which works to ensure that unsolicited, unwanted pregnancies and violence against young girls. Now, in order to do this, we've worked thanks to education, experience and sport. And we work with bicycle sports, games, to teach young girls what their sexual reproductive rights. I'd like to tell you a story I've made where we've been very successful, that young girls who learn to use bicycles, who to cycle, because in Colombia there's a kind of stereotype which only boys can cycle, learn to use a bicycle, so girls never learn how to use a bicycle. So for us, it's a major sort of satisfaction to see young girls using bicycle, and it's not only that, because they learn, once they learn how to use bicycles, they learn how about to deal with resilience, how to become more resilient. They learn about their rights, how to be more successful. But another example, 5 years ago, we set up the first bicycle team, and bike from polo to bike. So, in fact, there's no bicycle polo or polo with bicycles for young girls. I'm delighted to be able to tell you that the girls are now taking part in Latin American competitions for polo bicycles, and they're very happy, and they work as volunteers now in our organizations.
Natalia, and we're going to turn to Herman. And could you also share some success stories, please, of specific examples of the impact of Empathe's approach to foster inclusion and empowerment of individuals with Down syndrome in Argentina and Peru, please?
Antes que nada, es un orgullo formar parte de esta prestigiosa mesa. Soy el presidente y fundador de Fundación Empate.
I'm delighted to take part in this roundtable. I'm the president and founder of this association, Impact, which enables us to deliver solutions to people with Down syndrome. All this is thanks to learning jobs via sport. We have a simple yet deep message. We're talking about impact. We're talking about equality, parity, impact with equality and parity. We're aspiring to a world where no longer be winners and losers, but just pure equality, and doubtless promoting sports for personal fulfillment of young people. The solution of disparities will be essentials. We want to enable people with Down syndrome to practice sport, to be included in society. Where headquarters is in Cordoba in Argentina, and we have a program to promote these models, high impact models, and we want these areas to become an opportunity, and we are developing a franchise in Argentina and also in Lima in Peru, and we'll be able to reach 600 people who've got Down syndrome. And with people from different geographical locations can gain access to these forms of sports. And we tried to reach a different population strata in regions, and we want to try and develop equality models in the equator in Colombia, in the United States. That is our approach. And we have Sekiel, who is an adult who has Down syndrome, and is one who joined our sports association about 4 years ago. But at the beginning, he had quite a lot of difficulties when it came to communicate and to developing, becoming more coordinated. But within a month, little by little, or in over a few months, little by little, he became more confident in himself, and he's demonstrated that he was capable of being a bit more autonomous, to have a relationship with his peers, and it was thanks to the sport he was able to develop. And this was somebody who had Down syndrome. So that's just one example of how people with Down syndromes become actors of their lives rather than mere bystanders. But it doesn't just enable that people have but to take part more, but they're really able to act, but they're capable, but they be recognized. This interdisciplinary approach is absolutely essential, and our team, we've got people, we've got psycho-pedagogue, physiotherapists, people who can contribute, and I think we have to really be committed and give every opportunity to people with young Down syndrome so they can become protagonists in their lives. And thank you very much.
Eunice, both of your projects foster social reintegration and for incarcerated men and minors through sports and life skill learnings. So, first of all, I understand that your project's objective is to use a sports practice, in particular fencing, to break the cycle of recidivism. Was this an effective, program to achieve this goal, and how or why?
Merci pour cette question, Laurence. Donc, la méthode escrime et justice réparatrice a été créée fondamentalement pour rompre avec le cycle de la récidive pour des mineurs mais des jeunes filles comme des jeunes garçons. Ils sont tous dans cette pratique depuis 2015 et avec les 600
Girls as well as boys. Now, up to now, since 2015, when the program has been set up, this program called Restorative Justice and through fencing, we use an algorithm. We've been using an algorithm in order to set up statistical data for the people underage who have benefited from this method, and we do some research into the birth dates of these boys and girls who are underage in order to see whether they have repeated their offenses. This principle, based on restorative justice, has been created in partnership with psychologists and psychiatrists, and also a sportsman which practices fencing, as well as the penitentiary administration. This methodology makes it possible to put those young girls and boys into the proper situation. And we encourage socialization, accountability, and self-control. Fencing makes it possible to do that. For instance, the fact that they have a helmet, and it makes it possible to work on their identity. And since they can be recognized, they can be whoever they want to be behind the helmet. Also, we force them to do some arbitration, and when they are into competitions, the boy or girl who loses the point has to say himself or herself that he has lost the point in order to encourage or to promote accountability. It has worked really well, and we haven't had any case of recidivism, which proves that our methodology is very efficient. Thank you very much.
Eunice, could you precise how the knockout program aimed to facilitate inmates' reintegration into society after they are released from prison? I understand you have 9 years of experience, and what would you say are the enduring results and success stories that you have witnessed through these years?
Sí, bueno, Knockout, No Tires la Toalla, es un programa justo de prevención terciaria que trabaja para la reinserción social y sobre todo tiene un objetivo principal y una metodología que transita del castigo,
The main objective, our methodology, is based on punishment, but also it moves from punishment to a model that proposes professional skills, sports, and also it makes it possible for them to enter into workshops in order to improve their family relationships. It was like a magic wand for those people who are imprisoned. We, of course, carry out tests and controls and psychometric tests. We measure the level of stress, anguish, anger, and other feelings and behaviors inside the prison. We see that there are lots of negative feelings, loneliness, sadness, hatred. We want to change those feelings through boxing with boxing champions, and those come into the prisons in order to train the prisoners, detainees, and also we work on reconciliation, on restorative justice. Most of the detainees have been victims in the past, so it's very important to repair their soul in order to continue on that path. There is also an emotional part in our work. Each Tuesday we meet with the detainees' families in order to work on the family ties. We have other relationships, positive experiences inside and outside of the prison. Inside the prison, one time At one point in time, the prison director told us, "Why do you want to teach them boxing? It's very aggressive." So he was against that. But we explained to this director that boxing could soothe their anguish. Now, for instance, one of the prisoners, Carlos, was punished and sent to a specific cell because he was punished each month. So we explained that through sports and through forgiveness, we explained to Carlos that when he feels attacked, if he feels sadness and anger, but now he has managed not to respond to every aggression. Now, Oscar and other prisoners now are teachers, boxing teachers and trainers, and when they complete their training session, they can receive money in order to continue their training. So we have trained 50 prisoners to that end this year, and boxing does not only aim at controlling one's emotion, it is also a means to find a job when they get out of prison, and it's also a possibility to increase their self-confidence. So this is part of the results that we have been able to achieve with this program.
Getting to you. I suppose the fact that the Olympic Games are going to be held in Paris next year makes it a perfect moment to interest young people in sports. And but in the case of your program, can you explain me what long-term impact you hope to achieve for displaced young people in Île-de-France in terms of their well-being, their integration, and future opportunities, providing them with sustainable access to sports?
Sure, thank you for your question. Just to give you a bit of context, in Paris, 20% of the population are immigrants, and among them, there's a lot of refugees, asylum seekers, and also undocumented workers, and unaccompanied minors. And also, we face a crisis of hospitality here in France and in Europe more generally. At the moment, for example, the welcoming conditions are being more and more complicated for us, and there's a law being discussed at the moment, about asylum and those kind of subjects. So what we have at heart at Terrain d'Avenir and the 6 organizations that are part of it, and is that there is no future and no peace possible without intercultural dialogue and recognitions. And so what we do is that we target directly displaced young people, and we offer them first the possibility to develop social links with the host society. We organize free activities and activities free for all. By that, I mean that in our playground, you will meet refugee people, but also French people, international students, people coming from whatever part of the world, all mixed together. And those activities enable displaced young people to develop a sense of belonging and to define a new positive life project in their new context through sport. But we also have a 360 degrees approach of that, because we not only want to achieve social inclusion for them, but also offer them the possibility to develop professional competences. So throughout our activities, we train them and we offer them the possibility to become themselves the organizers of the activities, to become leaders. And if they like those kind of activities, we offer them also vocational trainings that are adapted to their specific needs and that offer them the possibility to work in the sport domain after that. But we not only target the young displaced people, but we also offer training to the social workers and the sport area like the clubs and the federation, in both ways. The first one is that we help social workers to use sport as a tool in their everyday life in connection with the young and the displaced people. And for the sport departments, the clubs, the federations, we help them to develop a methodology that will help them to open their activities, open also their companies, like sport companies, being more open to displaced people, displaced young. And in fact, we want to put a sense of inclusion and unconditional welcoming at the heart of sport in France, but wherever. And to do that, we need to change the culture, both directly to the people, so that they see sport not as something really strict, but something that can connect everybody. But also we need to change the culture directly to the system, the sport federations, clubs, but also the institutions.
Great, thank you very much, Nina. And now, Ludovic, I understand that your organization, Peace and Sport, has developed a methodology to foster that young people absorb a variety of very important life skills through sport practice. Why is this methodology innovative, and how does it make a difference? And how do you disseminate this methodology? Because I understand you don't keep it for yourself, but you share it with others. Please.
Merci. À Peace and Sport, nous, on a la conviction que les programmes de terrain doivent être menés par...
We're convinced that work in the field must be designed for and by local communities. And for the past 15 years, we've been lucky because we have a high-level network, sports network. We are helped with CIGEP, the UNESCO, and other organizations, and we have set up a network that made it possible to respond to urgent needs during the COVID time. And associations ask us to prevent violence through designing an action methodology. We've heard about beautiful, great examples on the field with specific methodologies, for instance, in prisons. But those organizations in the field have called upon us several times to ask for our support concerning the availability of updated educational contents for young people between 8 and 12 years of age. So we had people from all parts of the world, Latin America, India, Africa, and during this lockdown period, we worked on an educational program concerning football, basketball, etc. And we drafted that program in 3 languages. We made it available in a digital way. We put it online in order for each of our educators to have access to this program and for them to give us feedback about the children's participation and what they think about the exercises that we had designed. Now, we developed a mobile application with an organization headquartered in Nice, and it was possible for us to correct those exercises online, live, and advocate for risk prevention. How can we disseminate this methodology? As I told you before, we've organized forums dedicated to sports, and I would be delighted if you could come to our country next year, to Monaco. We have selected the organization working in the field, and those organizations wanted to work with us in disseminating sports value in order to build a peace-based culture. Of course, we cannot give a mobile application and believe that this will automatically have a positive impact on children. Of course, we need to do some capacity building. We needed to meet educators, to train them, to support them, to create recurring events and mobilize local communities. And nowadays, it's a great pleasure for us to see that local city halls support those educators, as well as embassies and national institutions and governments, in order for these activities to be sustainable. So this application, this methodology, responds to a requirement and a need in the field. I didn't decided just suddenly to create this application. We really responded to needs in order to prevent violence through the practice of sport. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
And now back to Natalia. Natalia, your program shows that we can transform girls' lives through sport. And in your opinion, how can we effectively integrate sport as a tool for development and governance, rather than just treating it as a separate subject or focusing solely on sports-related aspects?
Bueno, nosotras lo que hacemos es trabajar una metodología que se llama educación experiencial, donde combinamos el deporte y un currículo de temas.
Education and experience. We combine sports and various topics that we should all learn, for instance, human rights law. So we combine both sports on the one side, on the one hand, and other topics like sex education, and we do that through games. We have a book. Oh, it's not really a book. It's a game and sports also that we use. The girls learn much more through that on reproductive health, how they can take care of themselves. So they learn more through games and sports than through a traditional lesson. So sports and those topics work very well.
You know, we were talking yesterday, and because usually sports entail competition. And competition can have its good and bad aspects, you know, because when we compete, we want to win over the others, and this can foster conflict. And also, sports is based usually on gender difference, and it has traditionally been male-dominated. So I understand that in seeker sports, gender balances may be an issue, but you don't have competition. It's more a teamwork. So can you actually tell us how your program addresses those two issues of gender bias and competition, please?
Sure, thank you. Yes, so as circus, there's not a lot of competitive elements because it's, I mean, as in many sports, right? We always have to work together, but there's no like two teams that are against each other. So it's really so much built on trust, communication, on working together. I mean, if you want to stand on somebody's head who's standing on somebody's shoulders, who's standing on somebody else's shoulders, you better trust that person, that they're not going to drop you. And especially in a country like Zambia, where we don't have necessarily all the safety equipment that some other circuses might have in the world. So trust and communication and discipline is a huge, huge component of what we do. Going to the gender aspect, yes, this has been for us as well a major issue to deal with. We've been around for 7 years, and as many places in the world, yeah, it was mostly the boys that we started with. I mean, also our founders, there's 3 male and me. But you know, if you go, I think you guys, you've been around the world in some of your own communities. You go, you walk around, you see boys flipping on the streets, doing backflips, jumping around, and often girls are kept in the houses, don't have that liberty to go out. So even when we started with the circus, it was mostly boys, and it was mostly boys who had the advantage of already being able to do tricks, already feeling free to jump around. So we really had to put like conscious effort into bringing the girls in, so which really meant going house to house, inviting girls to come and participate, explaining to parents what it means that we're doing and how they contribute. I mean, also circus has there's a lot of physical touch, so how do you deal with that? So we had to develop a lot of policies, a lot of regulations, and a lot of like awareness amongst the young people as well of how do you deal with that kind of intimacy in the circus. But yeah, the major thing that we did is actively approaching parents, actively engaging parents, so having days where we would engage parents to come to the circus, see what they're doing, and we developed multiple projects that were focused on girls' participation, gender equality, and where we invited both boys and girls to participate, so that also the boys in Circus Zambia, as much as they would complain sometimes that now all the attention is going to the girls, but that they also understood why we're doing what we're doing and why we're trying to create this boost for girls. And I'm happy to say that now, after really conscious efforts for the last 5 years or so, we have equal participation. We have, like I said, women traveling around the world, women being circus performers, and like I said, even the boys calling themselves feminists. So I think we've made some headway there.
Great, thank you. Nina, now can you tell us how your program addresses toxic competition and male dominance, please? And sorry to bring in another question, but I know that your program is supported by the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games, and I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about this collaboration you have. And that's a two-part question, but...
Thank you for the gift. First of all, I would like to say that sport is neither bad or good. You just need to have the adequate methodology to take the good from it. Every week we organize sport activities which are very diverse. We have at the moment more than 15 sports presented in Paris. And those sessions are not meant to prepare you for competition. They are organized in a way that anybody can join at any moment. Every session will begin with a time of welcoming the newcomers, a team building that is a warm-up to show the young and the less young. I mean, like, we have people from every age, every gender, every athleticness level. We have no barrier in terms of legal status or language. And so just to show everybody that sport is not only competitive, it's not only like sweating a lot and like crushing your muscles. It's about the group, the collective practice of sport, and doing physical activities all together, to move together. And if some of our participants want to do competition, we make a link with a club or a federation to give them the opportunity to do competitions. Also, we are 6 organizations, so if I can name them, we have Emmaüs Solidarité, Kaboubou, Oval Citoyen, Taekwondo Humanitarian Foundation, Play International, and Football Mass. And the 2 last ones, specifically, they have developed their own philosophy on sport and their own methodology. And for example, Football Mass, they focus in sports for development, and their objective is not to make the best one win, but to reinforce during the game, they use football, to reinforce all the good habits, all the good actions, all the good stuff that has allowed the group to do something great. And this kind of methodology shows them that you don't have to play for yourself in an individualistic way, but for the collective. And also Play International, they use sport as a way to not play sport, but to develop psychosocial competences. So what we want to advocate for is that sport is not only about competition and toxicity, but self-empowerment, self-development, but also community development. And in fact, our program has been created thanks to the Olympic Refuge Foundation and in collaboration with the Ministry of Sport and Olympic Games and Paralympic Games of France. So without the Olympic Games, we wouldn't exist. Like, each of our 6 organizations already existed, but we were joined together thanks to that.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing with us this experience. Herman, as your area of expertise is in line with the Paris 2024 Games, what experience or best practices from empathy can be leveraged to inform global governments, frameworks, and initiatives aiming to support individuals with disabilities and to promote their inclusion?
En el mundo hay alrededor de 6 millones de personas con síndrome de Down. La alteración genética humana es más frecuente y la condición de mayor incidencia respecto a la discapacidad intelectual. El deporte no solo mejora la inclusión social,
We've been able to see great intellectual capacity, sport, contributing to improving the quality of their lives. Research studies has demonstrated that it takes place, it contributes to life, but before it used it prolongs people's, it extends people's life expectancy. As for the overall policy, it's important to promote inclusion of disabled people in all world disciplines. This presupposes the appropriate policies and regulation which encourage the active involvement of disabled people in sport. It's important to have mechanisms for evaluation, supervision, that we're hitting the objectives that we've set ourselves, because sport is a right, and as every right, it must be accessible to each and every one of us. So the sport union for people with Down syndromes, for instance, or other disabilities, sport should be available across all countries and across all continents, and demonstrate via the International Paralympics that people with Down syndromes may take part at a very high level, as long as one makes it possible. You offer to them to take part in a manner which is fair, and the Argentinian Sports Federation the Argentina is the first sports federation which is specifically for athletes with Down syndrome. We continue to work jointly with creating national expertise, world expertise in all sports disciplines. We're trying to ensure this sports category we encourage sport for Down syndromes that should be incorporated into the next Olympic Games. And our work has demonstrated that sport is a major instrument for fostering inclusion of people with Down syndrome, and I hope they've contributed to other countries where this need exists, where palpable need exists for people with Down syndromes, like Colombia, the Equator, the United States. And there should be free enrollment. All actors, governments, universities, private sector companies, NGOs, and society as a whole. We're managing fora which should be facilitate encounters, should be inclusive, and this society should be open up to people with disability and Down syndromes, and not be purely open to people fitting into gender stereotypes. Thank you very much.
Drawn from the program, Escrime et Justice Réparatrice, to inform global governance efforts in addressing the needs and rights of marginalized youth in the criminal justice system.
Donc, toute cette méthode, elle a été mise en œuvre avec...
Well, this whole method was put into place with the police establishment, the prisons in a region of Senegal, not too far from the capital of Dakar, and really made it possible as far as the approach of prison staff is concerned, much more involved, more in education and less in repression or cracking down, if you like. So we change in the form of behavior in regard to young offenders on the part of penitentiary and prison staff, and across the prison population. We've also seen a change in paradigm, or paradigm shift, if you like. That's to say, where we're going from an approach which is strictly prison-based, which are moving towards an approach with much more empathy, which is much more relationship-orientated, where they look at how they behave and interact with the prison population. They think about the imprisonment conditions of these young offenders and what's important, and that's why I want to. So this model, we want to be this model to be much more extensive in Senegal. We're in the process of setting up an academy to train up more trainers, to have partnerships with other prisons in Senegal, so as to ensure there's a more social relationship-based approach between the young offenders and the prison staff, and able to foster re-inclusion of these young offenders into society.
Beneficiaries of the program, initial beneficiaries, but all their context, no? And now Alma Eunice, can you tell us how the knockout program combines boxing with other activities to actually reach your objectives?
Bueno, pues el programa Knockout, No Tires la Toalla, combina, como habíamos dicho hace un rato, el boxeo, la práctica.
Well, as we said earlier, with boxing, our approach with box with high-level boxing champions, they come, they exchange, they talk, because boxing in Mexico is a people's sport. Many Mexicans identify with boxing, but they've had complicated life stories, some of the people in boxing. So there's context here. So we work specifically with men. Now, when we began that about 10 years ago, we asked associations to work with us, and they said, well, they're working with women and young people in trouble with the law. And they said there's something working with male prison convicts. In fact, 1 out of 4 becomes prison convicts becomes a repeat offender. So boxing gives them an identity. They're drawn to boxing, and it gets them to take part, get involved with others, to have a world-class boxing champions. Lends dignity to this area, because they're now in a forum. They're expecting. We've got a brand, a well-known brand, which is cooperating with us. So I won't name the brand here and now, but it's sometimes it's of course, when you take part in boxing, they have to take. It's an obligatory. It's a requirement to take part in other parts of the program and the other sessions. We look at the hatred they have, their resentment. So we look at restorative justice process. We look at bringing their emotions to balance. We look at working with them as individuals, with families, and we've frequently seen that young people have problems with their families, and sometimes the family could be the source of the problem. Sometimes they come, they just ask for money, because everything in prison, everything is expensive. So these relationships are slightly disrupted, or at least complex, between the prison convicts and their families. So there's a relationship which to rebuild up so that it can be reincorporated into daily lives and weaved back into the fabric of society. In fact, they work with them. We work with them via boxing. We work. They say first of all, I came mainly for boxing, but I learned forgiveness, negotiation, and I even heard a colleague or a friend said who stood up and began crying, and so I began to listen to him, and I began to learn that actually that this was doing me good as well to learn. So boxing is something, we're getting something that we didn't really expect. It's been an ally to help us reduce dependencies. A large percentage of people taking part of the program abandon drug consumption. So that's a positive outcome, and 100% improve their relationships within the families, within the prison, other relations in the prison with their families. And after a few months, we see they begin to get more muscular, they feel better physically, socially, they feel better, and they're more mentally agile, and has helped them for self-confidence, and that they attract the affection and the respect of others. So nobody is actually born a criminal offender. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. No, there are the background and contextual factors which lead people down this pathway, the offender's pathway, the pathway of crime. So this is a way of giving a second chance to people whose first chance that the hand initially dealt to them in life was not necessarily that favorable. So, because the idea is they've got a feeling, you have to bear in mind that these people, a lot of people have a feeling of hatred, of resentment. It needs to be a full emotional rebalancing out, both socially, emotionally, family-wise, and so on.
The comprehensive support offered by the Peacemakers project actually contribute to the goal of promoting social inclusion and addressing the challenges of global governance.
J'ai parlé tout à l'heure de la méthodologie, mais l'accompagnement qu'on apporte.
Well, I talked about methodology earlier, but the support that we give these organizations go well beyond this, and we monitor key activities, and it also means a part of assessment. We talked about this, and few organizations have the resources to fund a scientific evaluation of their activities. It acts as an enormous brake on their expansion. For Paris 2012, we created a mechanism to evaluate the contribution of sport for peace and accompanying students in the field in Togo and Colombia to do a specific evaluation, not solely a quantitative analysis, but a qualitative analysis of the actions, but beginning to create indicators which is as close as possible to needs and realities of their context. Because the reality today is the institutions have an approach which is quite some way distant from the capacities and experience of the actors in the field who can't keep up. So we're trying to have an approach which is differentiated, which might be a little bit of a bottom-up approach to funnel actors upward from the field towards institutions and play a role as a key pivot point to interface for two worlds which communicate little between each other. And so since setting up this organization, we made it possible to create a bridgeway between the public, a national and international public, and local in-field players and actors. And today, via the development and via sport, the only criteria that exists is the representativity of women within the boards of sporting federations. Now, this is indeed an excellent initiative, but we want to know how we get things to change in the field and how we get women joining those boards. That hasn't really looked at closely or worked upon. So that's what we're beginning to do little by little via education, via sport. We accompany these women to stay, or these young women to stay as long as possible in the school system. But we've got a degree of advocacy. We've established a definition for sport, what we're trying to achieve as peace, sport for peace, peace for sport. And we try to work on the language that is being used. It's not always used in the field. For example, the SDGs, is special development goals. But facilitate access to education, work on the culture of peace. But these SDGs 6 and 10, equality, security, leadership of women. But there's empowerment of young people, inclusion by sport. Now, all these SDGs, clearly this is only possible via a coalition of actors and players, as we do with in-field partners, as the French organization Terrain d'Avenir does. It's wholly via public players, via private companies who will forge strategic partnerships with all the stakeholders, and via institutions and via civil society. So that's via that we commit ourselves. We're channeling up the needs, the best practice, the calls from the field. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present that all to you all that today.
We have a few minutes to open the floor if you have any questions. That's your moment. We'll take them very quickly. And any comment, question? No? Everything was crystal clear. That's great, actually. But so let me just make a wrap up. Or would you like to add something, Alexandre? No? It's okay. So just, I would like to thank all of you for your very inspiring projects. And I think, actually, I was going to close on what you just said, Ludovic, and what most of you also mentioned, and what Alexandre told us at the beginning, that actually, to make really successful projects, you need, everybody to, put in efforts. Civil society, of course, but the public sector and obviously the private sector must also contribute. And when you do that, you have very like the key to success. So thank you very much, and good luck on your projects, and good afternoon.